Hello everyone, it's Dio from Firm But Fair Gaming, bringing you another Diablo 3 video. Welcome everyone to another Season 25 video. Today we are taking a look at the ZBarb, the support barb. So the Z is of course a zero damage class. So the support barb here, the main job is to provide its utility and survivability to the group. So you buff the group with veterans Warcry with Veterans Warning to give them increased armor as well as dodge chance while they're affected by the Warcry. You are putting a debuff on trash or on mobs, so from threatening shot with falters, so they're taking more damage, and you're giving the group mob or ignore pain with mob rule to make them immune to control and parrying effects like freeze and fears and that sort of thing. So your job basically is to help the group survive, to scout ahead into the greater rifts to figure out where you need to go and find the next floor and create stacks for the group. So as they move their way through the greater rift, they're able to come upon those stacks pre-made and just start working on them rather than trying to find the elites and that sort of thing. Your job is basically to help the flow of the greater rift and keep things moving along while everybody else kills everything. So that being said, there is a few variations to the build, so I'm going to take you through a bit of some of those variations, so let's go. For the itemization, so this season with the soul shards, we are rocking 2-piece savages and 4-piece of the Raekor set. So you can kind of mix and match however you want to get the, basically you're looking for the best stats or defensive stats here, and so you can mix and match, but you need the 4-piece Raekors. So the reason you want this is Furious Charge refunds a charge. You get the 2-piece bonus, which is Furious Charge refunds a charge if it hits only one enemy, and also the 4-piece Furious Charge gains the effect of every rune. So it basically means you have 3 charges, and like you freeze enemies, you get Fury, you recharge it by 2 seconds for every enemy hit. So if you hit a single target or several, then you're going to get basically a refunded charge on your charge, and it's going to basically just let you scout and roam all over the place. So you're just going to be able to run all over the place while scouting for the team, and then your charge is also going to stun and apply the strong arms that you're going to be wearing. So it's just basically a lot of utility. And then for the savages, you're going to wear the 2-piece because it doubles the effectiveness of your shouts, and so basically that is going to impact your Warcry and your falter. So your allies are going to get twice the bonus, and the enemies are going to be affected by your falter. So it's just a utility there to help debuff the mobs that your teammates are trying to kill, as well as increasing their survivability. The additional items that you're going to be wearing, because this is group play and you don't have a follower, you're going to be wearing the Flavor of Time. Basically, this is only for the conduit so that the benefit lasts twice as long, so that you can help zap down the trash, the mobs, everything to help out the team. This is about the only time you're going to deal any damage in the group is when you get that conduit buff, because everybody else won't be able to wear that except for maybe the support demon hunter will also wear it. So there'll be 2 of you wearing it, and the other 2 DPS or RGK won't be wearing it. So by having the Z supports wearing it, you get that double bonus or the extended conduit. Additionally, as mentioned, we're going to be wearing the strong arm bracers. So we want to get a pair of bracers that have the maximum effect. So enemies hit by knockback suffer up to 30% increased damage for 6 seconds. So we want to get the max roll. Because we are a 0 damage class and we really just want to focus on survivability, our items don't have to be ancient. We really just want good rolls on them for survivability rolls, or good rolls on the unique affix. So when we charge into enemies here, or if we ground stop, we're going to apply the debuff here for our DPS to kill the trash, the Rift Guardian, whatever we're on. One of the belts that we're going to use, so there's 2 different belts that we want. So one is Chilanix Chains. So when we use Warcry, we increase movement speed for our allies. So this just helps us run through the rift, get us from spots where maybe there's not enough trash, or we want to get onto the next floor or go to a pylon. So we want to use that. And additionally, we want to either be wearing Pride of Cassius or this one. So Pride of Cassius is increase the duration of Ignore Pain by up to 6 seconds. So basically, whichever one, you really want the 6-second roll on Pride of Cassius, because that'll make Ignore Pain last longer. So if you do not have a 6-second roll on it, then we'll be using it in our cube, and then we'll be wearing Chill and Exchange. But if you do have a max roll one as well as a good roll on the Chill and Exchange, basically you're going to be wearing whichever one has the better stats, and then cubing the other one. But if they're both terrible rolls, then you want to make sure that you cube the Pride of Cassius, because the 6-second increased duration to ignore pain is huge. For our rings, we are going to be using the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. So every time we hit with a resource spending attack, it removes 1 second off one of our skills that are in CD. And because we want to have good CD cooldown reduction here, because we want to keep Ignore Pain up as often as possible for our teammates. And then also we're going to be wearing an Oculus Ring. So again, we want to stress, getting an 85% roll here. So the Oculus Ring, of course, is when a creature dies, it has a chance to create an area of focus power, and the damage is increased by up to 85%. So here my ring is only at 83. I'm still looking for an 85. So ultimately we want to have an 85 because that's going to help our DPS kill everything through the dungeon. Then there are a few variations for the weapons. So this is how the builds differ. So some use the pig sticker, so it's got the cooldown on it, as well as there's the secondary bonuses, and also it's got a quick attack speed. Then also we can use the storm shield. So this is because there is the secondary affix on it where it reduces damage from melee attacks. So here I got a nice bonus of 30%, so that's increased survivability, and then it has got an additional block chance that I've decided to keep, but we could easily roll that off for a different stat if we wanted to. If we don't want to use the pig sticker, there are several builds that use in-geom. So this is when you kill an elite pack, your skill cooldowns are reduced by up to 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing that pack. So a lot of groups use this, or a lot of ZBarbs use this, because as soon as you kill an elite, you can pop all your cooldowns, like your war cry, ignore pain, and just help everybody run. I almost knock over my water. And then when you use war cry, you get the boost, so it just helps everybody move. Once an elite dies, you can pop everything because everything will be off CD and the group can move on to the next one. It is incredibly useful if you're doing speeds as well. If you're a ZBarb for speeds, you'll be using in-geom all the time, because then instead of you also have sprint on with marathon to help the group run faster, but that's a different build that I'll cover in another video. And so in-geom is also quite handy. I'm toying around I flip back and forth between the two of them depending on how the group is doing. If the group is killing things relatively smoothly as we progress up and doing the 150s, then I'll use in-geom. But if we're struggling a little bit and I'm not getting the bonuses often through this and we're taking a little bit longer, then I'm going to be using pig sticker. You can also use Slanderer and Little Rogue, so the Istvan's paired blades. So the reason that you would use these is if you're finding you're a little bit squishy, because every time you spend a primary resource, you gain attack speed, damage, and armor. And the only thing that would really be important there is the armor for the additional survivability. But if you're pretty tanky, then you don't need to worry about that. And I should mention that again, and I'll say it again later, that because we're a Z class, a 0 damage class, most of our Paragon is going to be all of our Paragon is going to be in Vitality. So here, if you see here, I have mine in Strength because I was doing a DPS run on my waist set earlier and I just hadn't changed my Paragon, but really all your Paragon should be in Vitality here. So last thing that I want to mention before moving on is if you're doing 4s or 3s, the Demon Hunter is most likely going to be your other Z support, and they're going to be wearing the Nemesis bracers. However, if you're doing 2s or in 3s, or for whatever reason the Demon Hunter is not wearing the Nemesis bracers, then they should be wearing strong arms, and then you should wear the Nemesis bracers. One of the Zs in all groups should be wearing the Nems. For our gems, so we're going to be using Gogok, so this is going to increase our dodge, and also we're going to get the cooldown reduction. That's what we're after. The attack speed and doesn't really matter so much, so as we're a Z DPS. Then we're also going to be using Gem of Efficacious Toxins, so poison all enemies hit for X% damage for over 10 seconds, but really we're using this because all enemies you poison take 10% increased damage from all sources and deal 10% less. So it's a debuff on the trash and also a buff for your allies, so that's why we're using that. And then we can also use the esoteric alteration. So this is a survivability gem, so gain 60% non-physical damage reduction, and then while we're below 50%, we get increased resistance to cold, fire, basically all the elements. If you're doing speeds and you're pretty survivable and tanky, you could also use Wreath of Lightning for increased move speed as well. And also there is another gem that some use, and this would be if you're survivable, and maybe if you're doing 2s or 3s and your cooldown is fine and all that stuff and you're survivable, you could use an Ice Blink as well. So basically your cold skills now apply chill effects, and so their movement, and enemies that are chilled have a 10% chance of being critically hit. So you could do that as well, and because you'd have all the runes on your charge from wearing the Raekors, a cold effect would be applied, so that would proc that. For our soul shards, we are using in our helmet the Fragment of Destruction, and the affixes that we want on this is we want the, so it's going to leave a trail of fire in our wake, slays enemies with the mark of destruction that are below 10%. So basically it gives us the executioner, so a free 10% execute. And also by default it has that we move unhindered through enemies as we pass, so we kind of get the illusory boots. And each one that is marked, and if it dies, it removes 1 second from one of our skills on cooldown. But if it doesn't die in 7 seconds, we're going to take 2% of our health as damage, which isn't a big deal because of our life regen and life per hit. But basically, we want those two affixes so we get the free execute and we get to move through enemies unhindered. The rolls that I have on mine, I haven't got great ones yet, so obviously this one has dex, then life, and then cooldown reduction and resource costs, which is standard, except for the dex. So ideally I would like this to be a resist all, because as a strength based class I'm going to have tons of armor, and strength and dexterity equal armor, so I'm looking for either intellect or resist all on this one. For our weapon we have Stain of Sin. So this one really we don't care about the main stats, about whether it's damage, critical hit and all that stuff, that doesn't matter. But what we want is we want to, when we kill enemies, when we kill 50 enemies, it's going to spawn the pool of blood that increases damage done to enemies by 150% in the last 15 seconds. And we want the other one, which is you gain an additional Rift progress orb when you kill an elite pack. So that helps us spawn the Rift Guardian faster. And as the season is using monks mainly as for the DPS, they are like elite killers. So getting the increased progress orbs helps you spawn the Rift Guardian faster, quicker time, better chance for success. And then in our gear, our regular gems we're going to be wearing the resist all gems. So the diamonds, so we're going to have the royal flawless diamonds in our gear to increase our resist all, because as mentioned, we're strength based, we're going to have tons of armor, we're going to be weak to the elements, so we need to stack that resist all. So that's why we're going to be wearing all diamonds in our gear. For the Q that we're using for this build, we're using the Measurements Reaver, so reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills whenever an enemy is slain. That's pretty handy. As the DPS is killing stuff, your skills will become off cooldown, which will let you keep Ignore Pain up more frequently, as well as help with your CDR. As mentioned, we're also using Pride of Cassius or Chilanix Chain as the belt, because those are the two belts we need to use. And then lastly, our ring is the Band of Might, so I have it in here because Band of Might is after casting Fierce Charge, Ground Stomp, or Leap, we take 80% reduced damage. Because we'll be charging around the map, this should always be up. And I have it on here because this gives me the max 80% damage reduction, whereas my Oculus Ring and my Obsidian, the unique affix is fixed. It's just always 1%, so it's not going to do any different if it's in the cube. And with my Oculus, an 83% is pretty good, and I haven't found yet an 80% max Band of Might, so once I do, if I haven't yet found an 85% Oculus Ring, I may switch that. For the skills that we need for this build, so I'm just going to put up a video here. So that's a 150 down on the bottom, so I'm just going to have that running, kind of show what the ZBarb does. It'll have some stacking and just map scouting as we go through. So basically what we want for this build is for our abilities. So we're going to need Furious Charge. So I've put Dreadnought on here, so that's the 3 charges. But again, because of our set, we're going to get all the buffs anyways, all the runes for it. We need Rage Flip, Ancient Spear with Rage Flip, so this helps the ability to stack. So as you can see down on the bottom, I occasionally throw a spear out. This is what is used to stack, help create the stacks. Then we're going to use Ground Stomp with Crunching Smash, so this is what is used to do a Pixel Stomp. There'll be a link at the end of this to a Pixel Stomp video to help you understand what that is. It basically groups all the mobs up onto a single pixel for AoE damage. And also in some cases, because the Fire Monk has trouble when there's lots of mobs on top of each other, you'll be using it to sometimes clear mobs away so that the Mystic allies will be able to strike the elite that they're targeting. And then we're also going to be having Ignore Pain with Mob Rule, so this reduces all damage taken by the party by 50%, and they gain immunity to all control and parrying effects for 5 seconds. Plus, if you're wearing the belt and you have the 6-second mod on it, so that'll be 11 seconds of 50% damage reduction and immunity. Then we're going to be using Threatening Shout with Falters, so we're going to cause enemies to take 25% increased damage from all sources for 6 seconds. And then lastly, we're going to be having War Cry with Veteran's Warning, which mentioned previously. We're going to increase the armor of our allies by 20% for 2 minutes, and they're also going to have their dodge chance increased as well. So then our passives, just going to shrink that there. So our first one is Sword and Board. So while wearing a shield, we reduce all damage taken by 30%, and we reduce our fury costs. We want Inspiring Presence, so the duration of our shouts is doubled. And after using a shout, all our allies within 100 yards regenerate 3% of their maximum life per second for 2 minutes. So that's a constant heal in the group. And we're going to have Nerves of Steel, so this is our second life. So if we happen to die, we get that proc where we return to 15%, and we take 95% less damage for 3 seconds, and this can happen once every minute, but we're pretty tanky with this build, so that should never really happen, except for if there's massive amounts of elemental damage. That is about our only downfall. Then lastly, we have Relentless. So while we're below 35%, if that happens to be, our skills costs are 50% less, and our Fury Spent is doubled, and all damage we take is reduced by 50%. We don't spend a lot of time at 100% health. We do fluctuate around that 50 to 35 sometimes, depending on what we've run into while we're scouting. But again, we're pretty tanky, so we should be good to go in that regard. For the rotation, as I've been doing my build guides lately, I've included a bit of rotation. There's not really much that we have here, because obviously we don't have a DPS rotation because we don't do damage. But the survivability rotation is we want to make sure, or priority sequence, I guess I should say, is we want to make sure Ignore Pain is up at all costs and at all times. When we want to proc our Band of Might, we should be using our charge, and because that'll proc the Band of Might survivability. And then when we want to do a pixel stomp, that is when we'll ground stomp. So you got to find that empty spot that you want them to be stomped onto, and then just stomp, and that'll pixel stomp everybody onto that pixel. We want to pop our Veteran's War Cry as soon as we come into the Greater Rift to get everybody that buff, and then whenever we come back to the group and we are giving Ignore Pain and we want to move from that section, we will pop War Cry again because that gives the move speed. And also we just want to make sure we're doing it at least once every 2 minutes to increase just to make sure the buff is active, as well as that life regen that they get as well. So basically when you're out scouting, you're using your charge to keep your Band of Might procced, and then when you come back to the group, and you want to come back every like 10 seconds because you want to make sure you're refreshing Ignore Pain, and you don't want that to fall off because that's when some of your DPS might die just due to the damage or getting frozen or something like that. So when you come back to the group, you want to pop Ignore Pain, you want to apply Falter to the trash that's there that they're trying to kill, and then probably want to refresh War Cry as well. If you need to do a pixel stomp, then do the stomp. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And as you're making groups, obviously I don't have any rage, so I can't do the spear in town, but as you're making groups and scouting ahead, you just want to kind of pull them all together, use your spear to make a big group for your trash killer, and then run back to the group, refresh all the buffs, and then move back out. kind of keep everything in that next pack, waiting for the group to finish the previous pack, and then they'll move up. Once that's done, they'll move up to the current one. You'll buff them all, debuff the trash, move forward, scout a bit more, make the next pack, and then keep bouncing back and forth, trying not to get too far away from the group, because you got to come back every 10 seconds unless whatever they're fighting is pretty tame and they can survive it. So I try not to get too far unless I'm also scouting for a pylon. So you kind of got to communicate to your group, letting them know what your plan is, because they may be relying on that buff as well. For the stat priority that we have on the ZBarb, so basically it's a survivability build, so we're going to stress just survivability rolls on it. So on the helmet, we would like strength, vitality, and here I have critical strike chance because I wasn't able to get a better helm than that yet. So obviously the other one that we could roll would either be resist all or plus life. For our shoulders, we want strength, vitality, and cooldown reduction and resist all. So basically anywhere we can get resist all, we want resist all, and also cooldown reduction. So that's why I've rolled the cooldown onto the shoulders. For the jewelry, we're going to again stress, if we can, cooldown reduction. So this is on my flavor of time here. I got cooldown, resource cost, which doesn't really do much for me. And then I have movement speed and armor, so all survivability. It would have been nice if I could have got vitality on there instead of the resource cost reduction. The chest, strength, vitality, resist all. Gloves, cooldown, strength, vitality. I don't believe we can get anything else on here. I already have cooldown. Life regen might have been okay there as well as another survivability item. The belt, so strength, vitality, life, and resist all is what we would like here. The bracers, dex, vitality, and then I have life per hit. I don't believe we can get resist all. Actually, we might be able to. We can get armor on here as well, so that would have been okay. And then the rings, yes, we want vitality would have been nice here. Cooldown, vitality, and maybe life regen would be nice on the rings. For the pants, strength, vitality, resist all, or life regen. For the boots, strength, vitality, resist all. And I didn't fix that one. So I believe I could either have move speed here or, oh, there's my move speed. I could have move speed or armor, but or even life regen. So I might take the move speed or life regen. I don't need armor because we're strength based. So we're fine there. And then on our shield, we want resist all plus life, cooldown. And if I could have got vitality on here, I would have preferred that or the chance to block. And then our weapon, again, we don't need to deal damage. So I went and rolled off the plus damage. So we have strength, vitality. I rolled off the plus damage to life per hit. And then we have the cooldown reduction here. Because again, we don't deal any damage. So we don't need attack speed. We don't need plus damage or AoE or anything like that. So we just want the cooldown reduction and survivability. When you're doing the group play, it's important to remember to remove your Paragon. So I was doing solo and I have Paragon from the area damage. So I was doing solo, so I needed it for the Ren build. But when you're in a group and doing speeds or 150s in particular, where things don't die right away, you want to take out your area damage, because every time you hit something, it does massive calculations. Like if everybody has their area damage in and everybody is dealing area damage and you have 100 mobs on the screen, it just starts compacting and it really slows down the game, or people lag and sometimes the screen goes black and all sorts of bad things happen. And then when the game catches up, everybody's dead, except for maybe the ZBarb, who has the most survivability. So you want to make sure to take out your Paragon out of your area damage before you go into a greater rift, especially in group play. So that concludes the ZBarb video. So if you have any questions or comments about the build, or if you have any suggestions about what you do a little bit differently and want to just have a dialogue about it, we'd appreciate any feedback. We enjoy talking about Diablo 3, and you guys are great with the comments and questions and feedback and sharing your tips and tricks as well. So keep it coming. We enjoy seeing that. As always, we appreciate any likes, shares, and subscribes. We enjoy making these videos for you guys. We appreciate all you do for us. So if you have any questions, let us know, and good luck in Season 25.